Hello everyone. So we are here with the next session on barriers to communication. Now in last session, when we were talking about business communication, we started with the barriers of business communication. We all know that when we are communicating with other person, there are few things, few barriers which affect the effective communication. Effective communication means which doesn't let the receiver or the sender of the information to share the right and the exact context of their message. The problem is faced whenever we are communicating. It may be intentional, it may be unintentional, it may be situational, which is not in our control. Like if you remember, we have discussed about the environmental factors. Do you think those environmental factors are in our control? Like we can control them and we can avoid the barriers. Do you think that those environmental factors are in our control? Definitely not. Those environmental factors are not in our control. Same way in the last session, we started with the cultural barriers. In the organization, let's say if you're working into any of the organization, there might be people who belong from different background, different culture, who speak different languages, they have different beliefs, right? Let's say if we talk about India and US, if we talk about different countries, their standing close to the person is quite normal. Standing very close to the other person is quite normal. But when we talk about India, it is not that common in our culture. Right. So same way, there are a lot of things which act as the cultural barrier and which affect the communication process in the organization. We all know that the success of the organization depends upon the way we communicate with other person, the way how effectively we are delivering our message to other person. Yeah, the effectiveness of the delivery, the effectiveness of the message is what which matters. So today in the last session where we have discussed about the cultural barrier, so let's just quickly revise what is cultural barrier. So basically cultural barriers is the challenges which are faced by the organization because the people belong from different cultures. That is the cross cultural communication within the organization. No matter whichever organization we talk about, no matter in whichever organization you are working, you will find people from diverse culture. There will be people who belong from different culture, who belong from different background, who will speak different languages, and wherever you'll find the people who speak different languages, who belong from different culture, who have different cultural beliefs, who use different gestures and symbols to communicate, you will face this cultural barriers. So in the last session, we have discussed about the ethnocentrism, stereotype, language, which act as one of the main and most important reason of cultural barriers, then the behavior and the beliefs. These are the 4 points which we have already discussed. And then the fifth point was us versus them. Usually, we the people have the belief that it is always us versus them. All the people are standing together against us. We alone are standing in front of them to face them. That is the belief people have. So from an evolutionary standpoint, belonging to a group may you stronger and more likely to survive in a hostile world. This is the belief that I belong. If I am going to belong from a strong group, if I belong from a group who's going to support me, is very strong, then I'm going to, I'll be able to survive in that hostile world of the organization, in the hostile atmosphere of the organization. That is the belief we make. Strangers or other groups were the enemy competing for food, safety, and territory. So this is what we believe, that the other strangers, the other groups, they all are our enemy. Here, what attitude the people develop, even if one person is going to have an argument or a conflict with one individual person who belongs from different group, it is not going to be one on one. It is going to be one group who is entirely standing opposite against that second person who is again standing with the group. So it's going to be group one versus group two rather than individual one versus individual two. Because here groupism starts evolving. And how groupism is made, that is not on basis of their likings, their work, their team. No, it is on basis of their culture. It is based on basis of the background from which they belong. People start forming their groups that, okay, we all belong from, let's say it's a North Indian group. All the people who belong from North India in the organization are the part of that group. And if anyone tries to mess with that group, or tries to harm, or tries to have conflict with even a one single individual of that group, they'll have to face the angerness and the the rudeness of the entire group. That is how in the organization the groups are made, and due to which, these are the only reasons due to which the cultural barrier starts evolving. This us versus them thinking is ingrained in our subconscious and can lead to a sense of alienation if someone behaves in a way we don't understand or aren't expecting. So, whenever we see something which looks to be unusual from our end, whenever we see something which we don't like, which is wrong in our from our perspective, we tend to dislike that person. We start disliking that person. We don't try to understand that person. We do not give them a chance to explain themselves. Rather, we just behave in a way we don't understand, or we aren't being expected by the person. This affect the understanding of the masses and create hostility. Definitely, when you are not ready to listen with the open mind, and you are not ready to listen to the person view, and you are simply judging them on basis of what you believe, what you think, then obviously you're not going to understand the real context of the message, and it is going to create a hostile environment. Now, the last element of cultural barrier is signs and symbols. People belong from different communities, different culture, different backgrounds. So here, when people belong from different areas, then obviously non-verbal communication which they use, the signs, symbols which they use, will have different meanings in different cultures and communities. So non-verbal communication, like signs and symbols, differ from culture to culture. This we all agree that there are few things that are, like, for example, as we can see on the screen, that the thumbs up is known in the Western world as a sign of approval, and is seen as a sign of insult in Bangladesh. So here, just think, like, maybe two persons, like one from Western side and one from Bangladesh, are working together in the organization, and let's say that the person from from Bangladesh is going for any kind of presentation. They both are working in the same team. So just for that thing, the person from Western side, he just showed the thumbs up, and from his side, what he meant was that the sign of approval, that we got approved. But for Bangladeshi, it is a sign of insult. So he's going to take it as insult that the other person didn't. He just tried to insult him. So that is why we say that whenever you're using such symbols, such signs, and make sure that they carry the same meaning in all different cultures. It is very important to understand that if it is going to carry different meanings in different cultures, then it is going to be very difficult to understand the real context of the messages. So for that purpose, make sure that whenever you're using some signs and symbols, use the signs and symbols which have the same and the common meaning across the people who are working in the organization, across all the communities, all the culture. And if you are not sure about the meaning, that what meaning does this specific sign or symbol carries, do not use that when you are communicating with your colleague, with your client, or with any person within the organization. Because this can lead to cultural foxpaths that may take time to smooth over and could be avoided in the first place. So with this, we've finished off with the elements of cultural barriers. Now today, the next thing which we are going to start on today, which we'll be discussing, is the ways to overcome these cultural barriers. Now we have understood that what are the different cultural barriers which are faced in the organization. So now when we are talking about the ways to overcome those cultural barriers, what are the ways which comes in your mind? That these are the ways by which definitely I can overcome the cultural barriers. So what ways comes in your mind? So if you're going to talk about me, then for me, the first way which will come in my mind is learn to listen to what other person is saying. Be an open-minded person. Do not carry any kind of assumptions on basis of your understanding, on basis of your own culture. So we can say that you should have open mind when you are listening, or you can say uh, giving the chance to the newly introduced team member to come to introduce himself, to talk, and to just tell us about him. That can be one of the way when you are getting to know other person, his culture, his background, by building team building exercises and by giving regular feedback. So these are some of the ways which comes in my mind. So basically we are going to discuss about 7 different ways which we can use to overcome the cultural barriers in the communication. Now, why I'm not saying within the organization, because these cultural barriers are not just the part of the organizational communication, they are the part of any kind of communication which is happening between two persons. Even if there is a personal communication going on, there also a person can face this cultural barriers. You go out for a walk, you're talking with your neighbor, you're talking with any of the persons living in the same society, you're just interacting with that person, but you both belong from different cultures. So obviously again, this cultural barriers may act as a barrier to hinder your communication, to hinder your message. So here today we'll be talking about 7 different ways by which we can overcome the communication cultural barriers. So the first way is be open-minded. Check your own attitude towards different culture. Check your own attitude that how do you react to other culture, and is it the right way to react to other culture? Are you supposed to behave in this way? Are you supposed to react in this way for the other culture? So you need to check. You need to have a check on your own attitude which you have towards the different cultures. Second is get to know your employees, their background and origin. You need to know that from which background your employees belong, from which background or from which origin they are, what is their culture, what is their belief. When you're working into the organization, it is very important to know the background and the origin of your employees. It is not only important to have an effective flow of communication with that employee, but it is also important to motivate that person, to set goal for that person, and to get to give him a particular task. When you will know your employees, you'll know what are the motivational sources which motivates him, what are the goals he has set for himself, what makes him keep moving towards the goal, towards the vision. Is he ambitious person? So for that person, it is very important that you know your employees. And to avoid the barriers, cultural barriers, it is again important to know the background and the origin of the employees. If different interpretation of expression or concept doesn't slow you down nor violates any rule, try being tolerant about it. If you think that you are not aware about certain kind of expressions, you do not know the meaning, but if you are not violating any rule, if they are not affecting you, then it's okay to be tolerant. Just tolerate that thing, it's okay. People belong from different culture, they come from different communities, they come from different backgrounds, so they will have their different perspective of seeing the things, of interpreting the things, of using the expressions. So it is very important that if that thing is not breaking, violating any kind of rule, or if that thing is not uh, affecting you or your work, then try to be tolerant about that. The next thing is show that you are patient and understanding, but that there is a line that shouldn't be crossed. Okay, you need to show them that yes, you understand them, you have understanding, you have a lot of patience, but still there is a line which the other person is not supposed to cross. If he or she is going to cross that line, then yes, it is going to be a tough thing for the person. Don't make a show out of it. Then yes, this is very important that you do not make any kind of show out. The second thing is efficient communication system. Set them up with a reliable communication system. You can set them up with a reliable, with a good communication system, and set up a single centralized communication hub. You know what happens when you have multiple communication hub, when you have different channels of communication, so it really becomes difficult that which channel of communication you are supposed to use, and as the receiver of the message, like what all challenges one need to check from time to time. So that is why it is very important that you set a centralized communication hub, a single centralized communication hub, which is being used by each and every individual. Be equipped with a centralized system that will eliminate the noise and streamline the communication. Be equipped with that. Proxys is a great solution in this respect. So this is Proxys is one of the tool, one of the communication thing which you can use, particularly when we all are working remotely right now. So you can use a single tool for all type of communication, whether it is texting, group chat, audio, video, file transfer, and even screen sharing. Like all of a sudden we all agree that it was a tough time when all of a sudden people were being asked to switch to virtual team building. People were being asked to work from home, so it was like how to communicate with each other, what platform to use. So now when slowly and gradually we all have become habitual of doing this thing, so at this point of time it is very important that you create a centralized communication hub which is being used for all type of communication, whether it is texting, group chat, group test, creating the groups, sending the videos, sending the file, sharing the screen, going for the video call, going for the audio call, for each and everything. just use a single platform, so people will be, it is going to be user friendly, people will be friendly using that thing, because they're over the period of time they'll be using the same platform again and again. So make sure you just stick to one platform which is user friendly. Here, your main motive of selecting the communication hub is not to have a, you know communication hub which where you have lot of features, advanced features. No, you need a platform which is user friendly, which can easily be understood by all the users. So that is what your main motive should be. So have a effective communication system. The third point is cultural difference awareness. Raise awareness among your employees about the effect of diversity in the workplace and the importance of tolerance and understanding. You need to make the employees understand about how effectiveness, how what is the effect which will have which the organization will face due to diversity in the workplace, and till what extent that thing is tolerable and that can be understood by your peer group members. That level should be made very clear to each and every employee who is working in the organization. Organize different kind of trainings for your workers. So again, now it is very important that you organize time to time trainings for all the workers, and the trainings need to be different. Like let's say this training is specifically for the use of non-verbal communication, how you're going to communicate with each other using the non-verbal signs, having the common meaning, like setting the common meaning for some gestures, symbol, signs which you will be using in the organization, which you will be using when you will be addressing your team. So you can have those things, like if I say this, so this is going to mean, okay, well done, you did a great task. So this way you can just train your employees to understand those common symbols and signs which will carry same meaning for all the employees working in the organization. Make this training as specific as possible. Okay, do not make this training a general training where you are including each and everything. No, make sure you're making the training as specific as it can be possible. Along with that, talk about concrete examples that are related to the concrete employees and concrete culture they come from. Whenever we talk about training, we need to understand one thing, that whenever we are spreading awareness, whenever we are training the employees, it is very important that it is related, it is concrete to the something, it is directly related to some specific things. You are not talking about anything in general. Right. Here we are not, when you conduct a training, you're not there to talk about anything general. Okay, this generally happens over there, but I'm not seen in our organization. No, you have to talk about the things related to the organization, related to your team, specific to your team, and specific for a culture, proper culture. So make sure you talk about talk about the concrete examples that are related, directly related to the employees, concrete employees, or the concrete culture from where they belong. Tell them about real world situation and how they should ideally behave and communicate. So you need to make them aware about the real world situation, real life challenges, real opportunities, real things existing in the market, in the business world, so that they will know that how they are going to behave in that proper particular situation, and how they are going to communicate in that specific situation. The fourth point says, let the new team member introduce themselves. Now, in our team, when we talk about the organization, it is quite common to have new people being recruited in the team, right? It is quite obvious. So, whenever you see a new team member entering your team, Give him or her the platform to introduce themselves, to introduce himself or herself. So, establish a practice of new employees introducing themselves. So, this is the practice which you have to establish, that whenever you are going to see a new employee entering into your team, you will give them the platform to introduce themselves, to tell about them, from where they belong, what they have been working on, or anything whatever they feel like sharing with the team. Do it in an informal way. Explain who they are, where they come from, and what they think is important about their life, their characters, and their origin. This way, you know, you are going to know about the person's community, the culture, the background from where he or she belongs. No? This will again give an idea about how they should communicate with the new addition to the team. So this will again give them the idea about the way the person should communicate with the new team. Give new employees time to relax and show who they are. So this is again where you are allowing them to relax, to cool down, and take time to adjust in the new atmosphere, in the new organization, in the new workplace. So give new employees the time to relax and show who they are. The next point is establish clear rules, but don't rely exclusively on them. Yes, we do see that organization should have the clear rules so that the communication becomes effective. It is not affected. It has not been impacted with any kind of miscommunication, wrong use of symbols, gestures, signs. So have those specific rules, but it also say that do not rely exclusively on that. Do not rely only on the rules which are being framed in the organization. Do not pull polish polish around looking for preparators. Create an environment where they'll feel safe to express who they are without endangering anyone. In the organization, the effective communication only takes place when you give them the environment where they feel safe to express themselves, to share their views, to share their thoughts, to share their ideas. So always make sure that you create an open environment in the organization. They should be respecting and listening to each other. Now, again, this is also very important that in the organization, you need to ensure, you need to make sure that people in the organization are respecting and listening to each other. They are paying proper attention to what their peer members are saying, and along with that, they get the equal opportunity to present their own views. It is very important that people in the organization respect the views and the opinion for all the employees in the organization, irrespective of the culture, the background, the community from which the other person belongs. Have a well defined written code in place that will address concrete violation. So have that well defined written code that if there is a violation of anything, then how you are going to address that violation, and make sure that this concrete plan is very clear to all the people working in the organization. Seventh point says, 6 point says, team building. Set them up with a reliable communication system. This we have already done. Then you need to have the centralized communication hub for team building activity also, and make sure you share the common platform which eliminates the noise and streamline the communication. For again this, you have the boxes as an example. And the last point to overcome the cultural barrier is seek feedback. Simply put, talk to people. Yes, we agree that it is not very easy or not very simple to provide the feedback, but yes, it is very important if you want to avoid the cultural barrier that you simply put and you talk to people. You just ask the people for their feedback, and along with that, you give your feedback to the employees. Ask your employees for open feedback. Give them, give them the platform where they are sharing the open feedback. Stop miscommunication with terms from cultural barriers. So make sure any kind of miscommunication which is generating, which is happening in the organization, you are just working on stopping that those stems, those roots which are growing as a cultural barrier in the organization. So you need to, first of all, you need to stop that miscommunication. Ask question to employees in formal way to fill communication gap. Now, when you're working in the organization, it is very important that the things goes in the formal way only. So make sure you ask the employees the questions, you give the feedback in a formal way to fill that communication gap. Show you are there to help them. Always, no matter whether you're giving the feedback, when you're giving the feedback or not, but along with that, it is very important that you show them that you are always there, being a leader, being the manager, being the subordinate, being the lead. It is very important that you show them that you are always there to help them. You as a team member, as a leader, is always standing by their side to help them. Detect the misunderstanding and address them timely and properly. So again, it is very important that you detect the misunderstandings and address them timely and properly. The timely addressing of the uh, queries, the timely addressing of the misunderstanding, the timely addressing of the conflict again plays a very important role for the smooth and the easy functioning of the organization. So with this, we have finished with the ways by which we can overcome the cultural barriers. And with cultural barriers, we have come to the end of the barriers of communication in the organization. Now, in the types of barriers, what all barriers we have studied? We have studied about the cultural barrier. That was the fifth one. The fourth one was the emotional barriers. Now, how emotion affect the flow of communication. Third was the physical barrier, which we have studied, psychological barrier, and the first barrier was the linguistic barrier, which is also known as language barriers. So these are the four different types of barriers, which we have five different types of barriers which affect the flow of communication in the organization. Now, in the next session, we will be discussing about the types of communication on basis of the medium of communication, that is verbal communication, non-verbal communication. Terms looks to be very simple. Verbal means anything which is spoken, which is in words, and non-verbal means use of hands, gestures, postures. But these all have various different subheadings which we are going to discuss in the next session of business communication. So in the next session, we'll be starting with the module 4 of business communication. We have come to the end of today's session. If you have any doubts, you can get back to me in the next session of business communication. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful day.